You know, here in Southern California, Zone 10A, we have a really long growing season, and I've been planting annuals literally since February. And even though I've been working on a project a week here and there over the past couple of months, I still have things that I need to accomplish, and I still have annuals that I need to plant. Luckily, it's not too late, and so that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to spend some time planting some gorgeous begonias in that window container right there, and adding a hanging basket to replace the one that had been there previously. So stick around. I cannot wait to show you what we're going to do right here. So now it's time to tackle this area. And one of the reasons why I've been putting it off so long is because we've been doing a little bit of upgrades on our house. We had our roof replaced, we had our trim painted, and then we had an old satellite dish taken off of the roof because we don't use that any longer. So I really do need to take time and do this space correctly. So I'm gonna wash the window, power wash the walls, let that dry a little bit before I get these beautiful annuals in. So I don't know, are you like me? Comment below. Do you put things off like this for a long time? I have a feeling that a lot of us do that, and hopefully I'm not the only one. All right, let's get it going. All right, so it's all cleaned up and I'm so happy with the way it looks. I got all the debris out from behind that window basket, and I just kind of cleared this whole area out, took that opportunity to kind of wipe things down a little bit. So let's go over to the table and talk about the beautiful annuals that I'm going to plant up in this spot. And I think you're going to really like them. Let's go. So the first thing I'm going to do when I go over into that spot in a moment and plant these up is I'm going to replant the hay rack that's underneath the window. I'm going to replace the cocoa liner with a brand new one, so it's going to be nice to start fresh because these annuals deserve the best place for them to really flourish. And so let's talk about them. These are the Double Delight begonias from Proven Winners. And about 3 months ago, I had ordered these from Gardening with Creekside or Creekside Nursery. And they were relatively small. I would say they were really, really small. And so I've just been growing them in their cans in a sunny spot in our backyard for the past 3 months. And I mean, guys, they look absolutely beautiful. I've been fertilizing them about once every 3 weeks with some water-soluble fertilizer, and they are doing very, very well. I've probably taken it a little bit too long having them in their cans, but after I get them in their new spot, give them some fresh soil, and they get situated, they're gonna do really, really well. So let's talk about these varieties. This is the Double Delight Primrose, and guys, look at that bloom. It's absolutely gorgeous. That yellow, beautiful double bloom with the backside being more of a mauve or a peachy color. It's just stunning, and those contrasting colors on the same bloom head are beautiful to look at, and they're going to be great in that spot underneath our window. And then alongside that, we have this Double Delight Apple Blossom, and again, what a beautiful soft white pink. It's just really beautiful. And again, on the backside of those blooms, you have that darker pink, really heightening the contrast in those two colors. What a beautiful, gorgeous bloom that is. And I think these three varieties together are going to be really spectacular in that spot. I really love how on each of these plants, the blooms shoot above the foliage to really help them stand out. And so my hope is that eventually over time, the foliage will stay more tight and compact and will shoot those blooms out so you can really appreciate the bloom heads that eventually develop on these begonias. Another thing I really like about begonias, or my experience anyway, is I don't really have a lot of pests that attack my begonias in my yard. I don't have to worry about budworms. I've never had aphids on my begonias. I don't know if that's just a thing or if you've had aphid issues on your begonias, you might want to let me know about that. But I haven't had any issues, so they're pretty low maintenance. The only thing that I'm going to do in a couple weeks here is probably give them some water soluble, make sure that they're hooked up to that drip irrigation so they never ever dry out, because like I always say, when our plants dry out and then we water them again and they completely dry out, we're constantly putting them in that cycle of stress unless the plant really does appreciate a period of dry out. Setting that drip irrigation up is going to be key to making sure that these are successful for the rest of the season. So they will grow between 8 to 12, maybe 14 inches tall and wide. They're hardy in zones 10 to 11, and also they are hardy down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is kind of cold. And to be honest, whenever we get cold in the wintertime, my begonias never really like that. We don't ever get down that low in temperature. But once we get into the 30s and the upper 40s, they don't thrive as they would normally. And then I'm going to go ahead and replant the hanging basket that's hanging right over that in that area with some of these double ruby calibrachoa or super bells. I've kind of lost a lot of my blooms. I think that might be because they've been in the containers for too long, but the plant is still healthy. I might give it a little trim back to stimulate some growth from the center, but I think that double ruby is really going to be nice, especially since we have so much of that really nice burgundy color in our yard this year. So that'll be a really nice contrast against these really bright colors. I'll get it all situated and it'll look great. Let's go. All right, so that was so much fun getting all of these things planted up, and I'm so happy with the way they turned out. It's actually 5 days later, but I wanted to give it a little bit of time because I wanted to film in the morning where these beautiful plants in the window basket got a little bit more sun so you can see them really shining in the sunlight. Those colors are so pretty and they have taken really well to their spot. No wilting at all. I gave them a little bit of water soluble fertilizer this morning, so that should sustain them for quite a long time. And I love the colors there by the window. And it's super cheerful, especially when you're inside the house looking outside, seeing those beautiful blooms on top of the foliage is really, really pretty. And then the container above me turned out beautiful with those really nice double ruby super bells, and they were a little bit stressed. As you remember from watching me just a minute ago plant those up, they looked a little stressed. They weren't blooming, and since then, about 5 days later, I have a lot more blooms on there, and some of that foliage has really greened up beautifully. And I think it's really appreciated the fact that they have a lot more soil to deal with instead of those small cans. I did notice a couple days ago that they were, when I planted them up, that they had a little bit of aphids and a few thrips. So I came by and sprayed that with a little bit of neem oil, and I checked it this morning and I don't have any sign of any of those pests. So the key is to catch it early so it doesn't get totally infested with those horrible things that can really take over your plants. And one of the reasons why I think I had aphids starting on those is because they were stressed being in their cans for a little bit too long, but they're going to be happy now. And I love the way this has also turned out. All that new growth and eventually those beautiful double ruby blooms, going to be gorgeous. And then I added this container. You didn't see me plant it up, but it's really nice to have something here. I originally had the container that my daughter Ella planted right here, but that container and the colors in that container looked great over near my tiered containers. So I wanted to definitely have something here to kind of hide this area where I have my air conditioning unit. And I think these Bordeaux Supertunias are going to be really a nice addition right here. I've trimmed them back because just like all the other plants that I recently planted, they were in their cans for a little bit too long. So I gave them a quick haircut. They're blooming gorgeously, and eventually they will trail over, kind of softening this space. And I think the color palette here, starting with the container on the end with the double yellow super bells and the double ruby super bells above here, along with the soft pastels, and now this gorgeous lavender color with that deep purple throat. I think this is all going to work really well together. I'm so happy. And whenever I do these projects, I wonder what took me so long. I probably should have handled this before, but we get busy. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me as I took time to clean up this area of our yard with some brand new annuals that I think are going to be beautiful as we progress through the season. But I'm curious, do you have an area like this that you've been putting off that you can't wait to get to? Let me tell you, it's so worth it to finally get it done. Let me know in the comment section. I am always happy to hear what everybody's doing in their gardens. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye.